we have a big announcement coming for you guys. We have V5, well 5, coming soon. It's going to be a week from today. I will put a link down below where you can go and check out the preview for V5. It just dropped today as well, so go and check that out if you want to get V5.
Yeah, for sure. So what we're gonna hop into today, because that was one of like, I guess your most viewed tutorials is the deadlift tutorial that we did. So we decided to do one for squat. We're gonna try to make it as in-depth, cover pretty much every single thing from equipment to execution to setup, everything like that. And yeah, hopefully we don't miss anything out.
Many of you are beginners, some are intermediate advanced lifters. You can probably skip ahead a little bit past this part, but we're going to go over equipment. A lot of people don't know that equipment that you use for powerlifting is somewhat essential. It's going to help you progress a lot better, be healthier, keep you safe, and make you feel like better while squatting. And the equipment right here, as you can see, we have a belt. A belt is probably the most essential thing that you can get as a newbie, beginner, intermediate, whatever, powerlifter. This is going to change your life. You're going to feel much better in all 3 lifts. A lot of people don't wear it for squats, well, not squat, but bench. But for squats and deads, this is a game changer. Yep. You need a belt. A belt is going to make your core and your brace feel that much better. And you're going to add like maybe how much weight to the bar?
I mean, it depends. I guess it's a more percentage thing, but most people get like maybe 5 to 10% out of a belt.
And then just training smarter with it, you're going to be able to handle more volume, stay healthier, so that way you're progressing at a much faster rate.
Yeah. Would you, I guess, slightly more advanced, would you recommend like a 13 or a 10 millimeter for squat?
For beginners, I recommend 10.
Yeah.
Just because this is a little bit more rigid and thicker. If you know how to use it, like I tell everyone, a belt is a tool. This is something that you use to, like, I guess, enhance your performance, right? You don't just put on a belt and you magically get stronger. You have to learn how to use this. And to use this, you have to learn to brace against it. And that's gonna make your brace, your natural brace, which is like your core, that much stronger.
Yeah, for sure. So like a 10 millimeter will probably be best for like more like a beginner, just because this could be a bit too.
This is an SBD belt. Yeah. This is, I guess, in my opinion, the most top end belt that you can get. If you're going for broke and if you have the funds to get some, they're not many on the market. I don't think they have many on the site right now that you can purchase. Yeah. But this belt in itself is by far the best, because every given day, like say you're kind of bloated, you can always change this belt on the day. Like you don't have to get a screwdriver, go in there and change it. This is a lever belt / prong belt. It has like the best of both worlds. But I don't have a prong belt here with me, but a prong belt will be one of those belts where you can change it on a daily basis as well and change each hole. Because people like you, I don't know if you squat differently with a different hole than you deadlift.
Yeah, slightly differently, yeah.
So like any given day you have to kind of change those around to kind of fit whatever like your core is and what you need for that exercise. A regular, lever belt, you can set it at one way, but you're gonna have to probably move it depending on how you feel, depending if you gain weight here and there, and depending on the lift you're doing. So yeah, you have to kind of be more mindful of those things when it comes to a belt.
For sure. So yeah, next we're gonna move on to shoes. We have 2 different options here. So we have flats, these are Vivos, and then we have the heels. These are Adi Powers.
Yeah, Adi Powers. So you don't really need any, I guess, exclusive one of these. Like most people I tell get some type of flat shoe. That's Converse, that's Vans, that's don't squat in running shoes. That's what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
A heel shoe is going to help you if you have, I guess, lack ankle mobility. Yeah. Or you just like a high bar squatter. It's going to be, I guess, less tedious on strenuous on your body. They work well. A flat shoe for anyone will do. You can go and get you a pair of Vans for like $40 or a pair of wrestling shoes for like $40. So.
Yeah, for sure. So anyone who is like more beginner and you're not sure which one of these to pick, definitely go with the flats, and the flats would let you know if you do need heels. Yeah. If you have like limited ankle mobility, you try to work on it, it's still not there for you, definitely try the heels, but most people are going to be good with flats. But Jamal, I think you squat in heels, right?
I squat in heels. For me, it's just more beneficial for me. I get better depth in heels. I can do both, but the heels just feel more natural since I've been doing that for the longest, and I feel much stronger in that position that I get into. So,
yeah, for sure. So next up, we have sleeves.
so knee sleeves. These, I mean, they're essential if you're gonna want to take powerlifting to the next level. But if you're a beginner, you don't really need them. But they make you feel more secure. A good knee sleeve is gonna be not really tight, but it's like it keeps your knees warm and keeps like some type of compression, and it makes you feel that much more confident when it comes to the squat. These right here are stoics. These, well, I'm not promoting them. What am I doing? These are just some knee sleeves, right?
Yeah.
That you can go and buy. These you can buy a pair off Amazon. Just search to knee sleeves. There's going to be a ton that you can buy. The best in the game right now, probably Enzer, SPD, Stoic. What else is there? Titan. There's a lot of sleeves that you can buy out there. There's sizing guides. Other than my YouTube, well, I wear extra small and these right here, but you don't have to wear that small of a knee sleeve. Just find out, I guess, go off whatever site that you go to and look at the sizing chart and buy based off that sizing. And then after the fact, especially as a beginner, just go off that. Then if you want to size down later, you can always go and purchase another pair down the road. So.
Yeah, for sure. So we actually going through these, I don't know if you planned it like this, but it's in order of like importance. Because last up we have wrist wraps, which I don't use, but Jamal uses them.
Yeah, so as a low bar squatter, where I get the bar on my back, having a good pair of wrist wraps is going to save your wrist. It's going to add a little bit more support and take some like strain off, like I said, off your wrist. So I feel like for me, since I squat low bar, they're more essential. He's a low bar, high bar like squatter, but the bar kind of just rests on his back. For me, it rests kind of like, it rests on my back, but in my hands at the same time. My hands are supporting it a good degree. So wrist wraps are not that essential, but if you want them, and they'll make you feel much better when it comes to squatting. Yeah,
for sure. As a beginner, obviously you're gonna be handling lighter weight. So, you know, if it is you have to get one thing, you definitely want to go ahead and get the belt. The shoes also essential, nice stable flat shoes. Knee sleeves will be next up, and then wrist wraps as you get heavier in weight would become more essential. So yeah, I guess that's it for equipment.
The main two ways you can do like a
back
squat is low bar and high bar. We both do low bar, but we both do it like a different way. If any of you guys have ran my program before, you know that we always have high bar as an accessory in there. So we're going to kind of go over high bar just a little bit, but it's just the exact same mechanics as low bar. That you don't really have to change too much of anything. It's just the bar position on your back. So I'm gonna go over bar position right now. A high bar position is basically just resting like on top of your traps, like right here, right here. This is all high bar. It's not much like difference between low bar. So for me, my low bar is right there, and it's just resting on top of my rear delts and just below like my upper traps. So it's not much of a difference, but that's my high bar to my low bar. That's all it is.
In terms of the actual execution and setup of the movement, it's going to be pretty similar once you get that bar position correct for both. So everything else that we say from here on would be able to apply to both different types of squats, right? So in terms of the setup, I guess we could go through it from like the very beginning. How do you personally like decide on your grip width and like what grip width do you use?
I always go to a point where my elbows aren't really too close to my body, but it's like a halfway in between, where I can get my lats tight. Like I can actually like roll the bar into my back. I see a lot of guys get too tight, and it's like it creates like a placebo, like a tightness, and you're not really like pulling the bar into you like you should. So me, I am middle finger on the ring, and that's like my ideal position to sit, because it's like it's just a good position for me. It's going to vary like from day to day. So like some days I have to go a little bit wider, just depending on if my wrists are acting up, or my elbow is like kind of like hurting, or like my chest is super tight. So when I'm like mindful of everything and everything is somewhat loose, middle finger on the ring is my best position. I can come in, but also sacrifice like just like where my elbows are. Yeah. My elbows go a little bit higher when I'm too far in, and I get kind of thrown forward too much doing that. So I had to move them out. From individual to individual, it's going to change, but for me, this is my best position. You just have to kind of experiment and see what feels more comfortable for you. Like, what do you like trying to feel for when you get yours?
For me personally, I do like index just outside the ring, so it is pretty wide, but it's the same thing as you said. Like, a lot of guys get a kind of like false sense of tightness by going as close as possible, and they have their hands literally like this far from their shoulder. Yeah. And realistically, when you do that, you're not really getting tight, you're just kind of like bunching up your upper back, you know what I mean? So for me personally, I feel for that lat engagement, as you say, and if my hands are too close, then I can't have that lat engagement. And then obviously, the thing about powerlifting is it is 3 movements, so you don't really want to be sacrificing, you know, pain on your elbows and stuff like that.
For bench, then you have deadlifts out there.
Exactly. So it's really like a kind of like a give and take. So if you can get tighter with a wider grip, then you might want to, as opposed to just like having your hand literally on the shoulder. You know what I mean? So that's personally what I feel for when getting into that. So I guess once the grip is established, after that, obviously, you lock in with your upper back, you get your bar position, and then you have the lift off, right? Yeah.
Well, I'll talk about this part. So yeah, for me, when it comes to getting my back tight and on the bar, right? A lot of people they'll set their grip right, and they roll on the bar, and they immediately touch your back and try to like get in position. But at that point, you're already sacrificing the position of like the bar being on your back, because trying to do that is like trying to, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's hard to kind of find that ideal position because you're not really tight. You're just kind of trying to feel for tightness, and the bar is just resting on your back, right? So what I like to do is I like to get my grip, and you'll see me, I'll stand center on the bar. I go under and pull myself through, then set my back. At that point, because when I pull my chest through, everything on the backside is tight, because you can't flex your chest and your back not be tight, right? So it's like, if I'm right here and I try to set the bar on my back, my chest isn't in a good position, like it's not through. Like, and it's like, I don't know, it's just, I get thrown off.
Yeah, for sure, I feel that. And when obviously you do get the lift off, like how does the bar like feel on your back? Like, because for me personally, what I would say is that regardless of what weight I lift off, when I get like a good bar position and I actually get my upper back tight, it feels light. So whether it be like 650, 750.
Yeah. So like you said, like when you get in that good position, right, and you get everything tight and get under the bar and set, the bar should just be in a good position where it's not moving, it's not going to slide down. It just feels weightless, right? Yeah. And my hands are just kind of supporting, but the bar is on my back. Yeah. Like, it's not moving.
Yeah, so it should definitely feel something like one with the body, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of thing. So one thing that we didn't cover there, like before the lift off, and this is actually something that I realized like a lot of beginners actually like completely skip out on, is breathing and bracing before the actual lift off.
That's really important. You also want, like, before you like lift the weight off, get into a position where you want your core to be to a certain degree before you even walk back, right? A lot of people, get on the bar and they're not even tight. They're just loose everywhere, right? Yeah. And it's hard to now and get tight because you never started from that position. So how do you know what that position feels like with 200, 300, 400, 500 pounds on your back? Like, it's hard to kind of find that underneath the weight, right? Yeah. So the best thing to do is be more methodical in your approach when you're setting up for the bar. Get set, get tight, brace really hard. Like, brace before you even like walk back. Yeah. You can let a little bit out, walk back slowly. We're over to walk out back in a little bit, but And it's easier to like re-brace after the fact because you know what that good brace feels like when you set up already.
One thing Eden mentioned there with the walkout, like I know
I'll
obviously
still go
kind of
there in a
reason-
minute.
Yeah, for sure. Is the like a solid 3-step walkout. Like that's something that guys waste a lot of energy on. Is like walking back too far or taking too many steps in the walkout, and it can actually like lose your brace, lose your overall position if there's you're wasting energy on the walk back there. So I guess you could talk a little bit more about like the 3-step walkout.
So, I don't know how, well, depending on your squat width, it depends on how, I guess you want to set up for, you're kind of close.
I actually recently like widened out my stance.
Oh, well, we're both somewhat, I guess, close. I guess you can get like a top angle of like the walk back. If you're, say you squat out here, right? You don't want to set up and your feet be right here because you're gonna get to the point where you're gonna have to walk back really wide.
Yeah.
Now you have to find that position when you started like super tight and your feet were kind of close. So now it's like you have to be more mindful of how you're setting up, stand up, and make it as efficient as you can.
Yeah, for sure.
So for me, I always like to set up my feet right under my body. That's where I feel more, I guess, just stable at when I'm walking out. So like I said, same approach. Then it's 1, 2, 3. I'm always like off center for me because I always use my last foot to kind of set my width, right? And it's just the best to do. I don't know what you do.
Yeah, I do the exact same thing. So for me, if I was to run through it, it would literally be the same thing. So once I'm here and I'm braced, what I actually do is I hold the exact same brace. So from here, I don't breathe out at this point. It's 1, 2, and then as you say, the last one sets the width. So here. And then we locked in and ready to squat. So the first 2 steps is really just to like get the distance back.
Yeah.
And then the last one is to set the width. With regards to the first brace, do you hold that breath going all the way back, or do you?
Yeah, for the most part I do. I kind of like, I'll let a little bit out like doing the steps. That
Yeah.
way I'm not kind of like holding that in. I'm not like super stiff.
Yeah.
I'll let a little bit out, but then like when I set up like my stance, I'll and get re-tight.
Yeah.
Then I brace again.
Same. Yeah. So it's two more or less like two like processes of breathing and bracing that you go through. One before the actual like off rack, and then one before executing the squat.
The one off, like off rack, is the most essential to me because if you don't feel solid coming like out of like the squat rack,
Yeah.
the whole lift is probably gonna go to shit, right? So if you can get to a position where you feel like super solid, your confidence is gonna go through the roof. You're like, oh, this feels light. Like you walk back, your confidence, like you're not scared anymore. You're just gonna squat the weight and blow it up, right? But if you go up there and you don't brace properly and you stand, you know you don't want to squat it because at that point you're already scared that you're gonna fail the lift based on how it felt coming out of the rack, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to have that happen because a lot of people, your mental plays a lot into how strong you're feeling throughout a movement, right? So say you walked out and it felt like 1,000,000 pounds, you're not squatting that. You're not squatting that with confidence.
Yeah.
So get your brace, have an efficient walk back, re-brace, and squat. You feel much better.
Yeah, and I think that also plays into like your bar positioning as well, because some people try to go too low with the low bar, and that could also make it feel like, you know, way heavier than it should. So it's really about finding what like works for you and what is most optimal for you, and not necessarily trying to go to the extreme with, you know, the bar position and the bracing and everything like that. So yeah. So I guess what we could go through now is the actual execution once someone is in place, and sort of like what goes through our mind as we go to execute the squat. So
now just talking about executing the lift, right? So after you set up, get everything, you brace, you have your efficient walk back. Now at this point, whether you squat high bar or low bar, you want the bar over your midfoot. That's going to be your most efficient movement pattern. So ideally, you want to move not your body around the bar, but like if you come to the side, like you want to squat in a straight line, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be the most efficient position that you can move the bar. And like I said, in order to do that, you need the bar over your midfoot. That's when the bar is on your upper back and how you're moving. That's going to be your most powerful position.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things which I tell guys, because some guys have like problems, I guess like understanding what midfoot pressure is. Basically, that is when like you feel the weight evenly distributed throughout the entire foot.
Yeah.
So midfoot means entire foot evenly like distributed, and that's really something you want to maintain throughout the entire squat. Because from the time you come forward onto the toes or you go back onto the heels, you basically, you're fucked. Yeah. So you want to maintain that midfoot pressure as best as possible. So I guess what you were saying there, for me, the way how I think about it in terms of like moving my body in such a way that like the bar stays there, is I try to break at the knees and the hips at the same time. So
Same.
I have the knees go forward, I have the hips go back. So I don't really focus on like sitting back into it, or I don't focus on like driving the knees forward. I just focus on like having them evenly go forward and back, so that I get that straight up and down movement.
Yeah. And the goal is to stack on top of yourself. I mean, why not use your body as a way to move the weight, right? Because if you're squatting, right, and your hips are way back here, what do you have to go off of?
Yeah.
There's nothing back here that's going to be able to drive you back forward, right? And that butt like squat back, like butt back position, that's old gear like lifting talk, because they had a suit to kind of
Sit on. Yeah.
sit on and like push them out of the hole. As a raw lifter, we don't have that. Our strongest mover in the squat is our quads.
Yeah.
So what's the best way to get all of the weight in our quads at the bottom of the squat to be able to push from, right? So, like I said, in order to do that, you need to squat on top of yourself. Because if you're way back here, you have nothing. If you're a little bit forward, also, you see, if I'm back here, my midline changes. Now I'm in a flop position. It's hard to kind of power out of that because all your weight is back here, right? So if I move back forward and squat here, I'm a little bit more upright, and the bar is right over my midfoot, and I can use my quads to push out of the hole.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be too far forward. You can never get too far forward, honestly.
You
can.
could, yeah, but it's tough.
But yeah, it's tough.
That's extremely rare.
Extremely rare. But you don't want to be too far back. You want to kind of have a happy medium where you're going forward, and like you're not really going back, but you're kind of sitting down at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. So now that you guys understand, I guess, like, the way in which you want to move your body, I guess, what do you think about, like, as soon as you're about to, like, re-brace and, like, actually execute the movement on the squat?
So for me, I squat in hills, right? I have flats on right now. But I'll go over what I do.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'll set up, brace, walk back, and re-brace. But for me, since I'm in hills, I have a slight lean forward. That slight lean forward, since the bar is like low bar, it kind of like, if I stand straight up, I'm going to be too far back. Like it's going to be like past my midfoot. It's going to change my bar position tremendously. So I lean forward just a little bit to stay on top of myself. From that position, that's when I break at the knees and the hips at the same time. And it creates my movement pattern.
Yeah. I know there's something you had mentioned in the past, and it's something that I never used to do, but I started doing it when you first said it, is actually pulling the bar down and into your back.
Yeah.
So basically, once you take that breath at the top there,
I still pull down.
Yeah, for sure.
Like there's pressure. I'm pulling down, but I'm also like pushing up, but I'm squatting down at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Sure.
But it's a weird concept. Like you're pulling down, but when you squat down, I'm still like pushing my back into the bar. I don't ever want to get to the point where I'm just kind of like flopping. Because when you just flop down with a lot of weight on your back, you're gonna hit the hole and you're gonna lose position. So if I'm constantly pulling down and pushing my back into the bar while keeping my brace, all this up here is rigid and tight. It's not moving anywhere. So now all the movement is coming from my lower body.
Yeah.
And my lower body is doing most of the work. My upper body is just maintaining position.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess what I could do is I want to demonstrate like a couple different like common mistakes that I see with guys. Because as you spoke about there, as you're coming out the hole, you're really focusing on like trying to have the upper body just as rigid as possible and really drive with the legs. But sometimes you see people like the hips shooting back out the hole, different things like that. So I actually want to like demonstrate a couple of those. I know we have the side angle as well. And I guess what you could do is you could let me know like what cues you would tell someone who might be experiencing like any of these like mistakes. So for example, the first one might be something like this. Where the hips and knees like shoot back out the hole and they'd have zero quad engagement. I've seen this so many times.
So for me, with that position, that's just bar position. The bar is not secure on your back, and you're not holding in a position where it's going to stay stable. Once that bar rolls up on your back, it's hard to kind of fight that, because now you're in a position where you're compromised and your brace is thrown off, and you're just trying to muscle up at that point, and it can be detrimental to like your progress, especially if you're doing that constantly throughout training. You don't want to do that at all.
Yeah, that could also like zap your posterior chain for like deadlifts and things like that. So for me, one thing that has helped, I never really used to have that problem, but one thing that's helped with like guys that I've seen is really focusing on, you know, getting that good brace throughout the top, because once your brace collapses in the hole, usually that's where you have the upper body folding over like that. And the second thing is really focusing on like staying in the quads. Because if I just like run through this real quick, and you see the difference, realistically, what's happening is like, you can see that I'm not really utilizing the quads as much. So here, this would be like mostly all quads, and that's a decent squat. But then here,
you're like relying back on your posterior chain to kind of move the weight, when in reality you need to stay kind of forward and fight through the quads at the bottom of the lift.
Exactly.
Just that lower part, like coming out of the hole and like halfway up, needs to be in the quads. Once it moves back, like towards your posterior chain, it's hard to kind of push still, because you're gonna get to a point where you're fighting yourself. And like we said in the deadlift tutorial, your brace is the most important thing in the squat, the bench, and the deadlift. If your brace is off, the whole lift goes to shit. So focus on bracing. Make sure that brace is tight. It's not like moving or anything. It's rigid. It's your brace. Like it should be stable.
Would you recommend the belt as like a tool that someone could use to like learn how to brace better?
Yeah. So with the belt, you don't want to wear that super tight. You want to have that somewhat like feasible, where it's like loose, but you can still put pressure into it. Once you get to the point where it's been too tight, it's just like you're not even using your core at that point. You're just dependent on the belt, and we don't want you to be dependent on the belt, because there's certain like parts of training where you don't need a belt. Now that you get to like, you take that belt off and you just feel weak, and we don't want that. Like you can probably squat 700 pounds without a belt. Yeah, for sure. I can do it too. So it's like, you want to get to a point where a belt is aiding into your mats in your training. We don't want the belt to take it away. So having a belt somewhat loose, especially like doing warm-ups, and like kind of really focus on bracing against, like meeting the belt halfway. And like keeping that tight throughout the lift is going to teach you how to brace properly. And doing all the exercises that we like kind of tell you to do, that's planks, that's stability ball stuff, that bird dogs, what's the other one?
Dead bugs, cable crunches,
all that. It's all going to help your brace. And the stronger your brace is, the stronger the lift are. Like you see those guys who like shouldn't be squatting like shit tons of weight. They have strong ass cores. Like their core is like no other.
For sure. So one thing that I realized we like forgot, and I want to go over this quickly, I don't want to make the video too long, is I guess stance width and like toe flare angle. So I know you said that we both like kind of narrow because we don't have like super wide squats or anything like that. But how would you like say someone should decide on how wide they stand?
Like I said, depending on your body length, everyone's body is a little bit different.
Yeah.
You just want to be on top of yourself. Any way you can get on top of yourself, it's going to be the most efficient, like I guess, position to be in. If you're way out here and you're trying to squat, you have nothing to like to sit on top of. And it's like, as a big guy, like if you're like 275 and up, and you're like you thick, like you can squat that wide. But as like if you're like a smaller lifter, you want to be more in. I guess toe angle will be dependent on how your hips are, like kind of in the joint. Yeah. So for me, I go toe angle like slightly out, and I try. That's the best way for me to kind of sit on top of myself. If I go too wide, I'm kind of compromising everything else around it. If I go too forward, my hips can't really move properly, and I can't get low enough. So it's like that happy medium is somewhere in between, where I can move freely throughout the squat.
Yeah. So what I basically just tell guys is, as Jamal said, you want to find the position in which, one, you could hit depth most comfortably, and two, you're most powerfully. You find the combination of those two things, and
build upon it.
Yeah, just build upon it, to be honest, and maybe make small tweaks here and there, sort of see exactly what works best for you. But it's going to be very, very dependent on you and sort of like the anatomy of your body, because it's very different for everybody. Some people squat super wide, some people squat super narrow, and people are at elite levels with all different types of stances and stuff like that. So
most of you guys, if you purchase V5, you get customized like your accessories.
Yep.
For most people, like you're gonna probably do high bar for most people. Then next probably pause squat.
Yeah.
Then say you have like kind of shoulder issues and you can't really bench as well, maybe do SSB. If you go in the community app, you'll see that we demonstrated all these lifts for you. This is just a tutorial on how me and Rondel squat, our cues and what we think about when we're going like executing the lift. But everything else, if you want all that other content, it's going to be on the app, and you can go over there and get it. But yeah, what else is there?
I think that should be it. So hopefully we covered everything. If not, you can comment down below.
Oh, we gotta go with accessories.
Oh yeah, sure.
Accessories. So most of you guys, if you have, I guess, imbalances, we would suggest you doing some type of single leg work. That's single leg RDLs, that's Bulgarian split squats.
Single leg extensions.
Yeah, leg extension, leg press,
Yeah.
Belt squat. Belt squat's gonna be a biggie. That kind of got popular over like the last couple of years.
Yeah.
It's just a great way to add volume into the lift without like kind of taxing like your CNS, because like I can leg press like 800 pounds, well more than 9, but like for like 15 reps though.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a great way to not like the belt squat is especially to not change your movement pattern like in the bottom of a squat, but add a lot of poundage to like your quads and you get a lot of work in.
Yeah, for sure.
What else is there?
Actually calf work is good, although
Calf.
usually powerlifters skip out on calf work. Is actually good for like knee health, especially. So yeah.
What else is there? I mean, just working on bracing. Like having a strong core is essential to powerlifting.
Yeah.
You're gonna be able to handle a ton like more load, a ton of like more volume. You're not gonna have that many injuries. Because like I tell people all the time, the first thing that goes in any lift is your core. Like that's when you're squatting. If your core goes, you're and you have that issue like what he just showed you, and it's hard to kind of like fight against that.
Yeah.
When you're deadlifting, if your core like collapses, you can't really power through like the finish of the lift, like the finish lift. Benching, if your core like it's a different brace for bench, but we're not gonna get into that. But
Yeah.
if your brace goes down, then you're losing a lot of like
poundage,
like, and you have to move the bar that much farther. So
yeah.
it's doing your core work and having control of your brace and all that stuff is going to be essential to being an elite squatter, elite bencher, elite deadlifter.
Yeah, and one thing that's actually underrated with the squat is posterior chain work. Reason why is because, as you had mentioned, is like coming out of the hole, one of the main things you're doing is driving your back into the bar. So, you know, your quads could be as strong as you would want them to be, but if your posterior chain isn't strong enough to have that like drive into the bar, you're gonna have like a lot of problems with like the knees extending too fast, and you're still gonna fall forward just because you don't have the posterior chain to like back up the quads. You know
So
what I
yeah,
mean?
so doing glute ham raises, doing hamstring curls, doing some like heavy RDLs, maybe Romanian deadlifts, a ton of upper back work.
Yeah.
Having a huge upper back is essential because it helps your squat, it helps your bench, and it helps your deadlift.
Yeah.
It just helps you feel that much more stable in your upper body. Then on top of that, then your core. So just get strong. Be strong overall. Do your accessory work. Accessories are key to progress. You can squat, bench, deadlift all day, but if those accessories are going to aid in your recovery, it's going to make you a much better and more efficient squatter. Going to make everything feel that much better. So do your accessories. But I think that's it.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot. I don't know how long this video is.
But yeah, like I said, go and check out V5 if you guys want that. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you guys can take something away from this video. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Peace.